Okay, I'd like to call the Conservation, Sustainability, and Green Initiatives Committee to order. Can you take attendance, please?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reinhardt?
Yep.
F. Coro?
Here.
Meso?
Here.
Mr. Fine is excused. Lockhart?
Here.
Miller?
Present.
Potsky is excused. Simpson?
Here.
And Pearlie.
Here.
7 present, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Now, we actually have two things that we're going to be tabling because of the public hearings are today for item 2 and 3. But I did want to just, before we start, if people involved with either of those want to say a few words, we can do that. But first order of business is to approve the previous meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Matt? And a
Second.
Tricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approved. The second order is the local law number L, the local law of the County of Albany, creating the Albany County Nature and Historic Preserve System. Many of us are co-sponsors of that here. Does anybody want to say anything, even though the public hearing is tonight, so we're not going to be taking any kind of action on it at this point? Anything you want to say?
No, not really, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for your leadership. Thanks to staff for really taking the bull by the horns. I will just mention one thing, that when you and I started chatting about this many moons ago, one of the things that drove us was what was happening in Washington at the time with the ARPA funding and the opportunities for federal funding for a variety of tree and forestry and nature initiatives available to local governments. And we thought, let's try to position Albany County to be in the hunt for that. And if anything, that opportunity has enhanced since the time we started work on this legislation. The Inflation Reduction Act, even the big omnibus legislation that passed at the end of December, the federal government has just added even more opportunities and programs for local communities to tap into. So, we were on top of it originally, and it's proven to be, I think, prescient. So,
Yeah.
good stuff.
I think it's going to work out nicely that way. Okay, so we will table this until after the public hearing, which is tonight. And if anyone would like to attend that, I encourage you to do so. The next item 3, is local law number A, a local law for the County of Albany enacting Section 470 of the Real Property Tax Law, providing for an exemption from county taxes for up to 10 years for the construction of buildings meeting LEED standards. Now again, this will be tabled because the public hearing is tonight, but Justin, did you want to say just a few words about this?
Sure. As we introduced this at our last meeting, I think. Time flies when you're having fun. This is a simple, straightforward step we can take here in Albany County to help incentivize green construction. I know there were some questions brought forward in discussion on what the fiscal impact will be. This is also a state provision we're allowed to opt into, and I know some members had asked for if we had any data on municipalities who have done that. And I know Lucas here can speak to these issues more eloquently and with more expertise than I can, but I can tell you that I think Niagara and Tompkins counties opted into this in 2015, and they've had 3 properties each since 2015 that took advantage of this tax exemption. We have about, I think, 60 LEED certified buildings built here in Albany since 2002, about 3 per year. Mostly were residential constructions. So I believe the fiscal impact on this, it should be fairly negligible. It's not going to have a huge impact, but I still think it will have a good impact on showing the state and our constituents in Albany counties continuing to take progressive steps and take the lead on building a green economy and a greener county. And with that, I'll let Luke speak.
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself short. I think you did a great job describing it. But it is a targeted measure in that it only applies to the county portion of property taxes. But we're hopeful that it will encourage more builders when they're considering their plans and their designs to consider taking the steps that would lead to LEED, sorry for the pun, but lead to LEED certification. It's really consistent with many of the initiatives that the county executive and the legislature have undertaken, whether it's funding through the STAGE Act, some of the things we just covered in public works related to green initiatives. So happy to answer any questions, understanding that yes, it is getting tabled, but if there are any questions, here to answer.
I see no hands up. Go ahead.
All right. I had the benefit of having a sort of a long chat with Luke today. I'm very supportive of the concept. I just want to understand how it's going to work because we do not create assessed value for buildings. Towns and cities and villages create assessed value for buildings. So, we talked through a bunch of different scenarios, like if you build a $10 million building and it's new and you reach LEED Silver, well, it's very simple according to the chart. You get for 3 years, you get 100% of $1 million, which is the cap. But hearing that there are a lot of residential structures, so if a builder builds an $800,000 house, how do you determine, or who determines what the value of the exemption is? Because the language here says the exemption should apply to whatever the increased assessed valuation is. Well, does that mean you get up to no taxes for the first 3 years because your house is LEED Silver, or is it the percentage of your house that makes it LEED Silver? I still don't understand how that works.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to that, and it's the value of the improvement, right? So whether it's new construction or a retrofit, it's, you're not impacting the existing tax base, you're impacting the growth in assessed value, and that's what is considered eligible for the exemption. The application is, because it's a state exemption, the application is a standard exemption, or a standard application where the building owner has to get the LEED certification certified by an accredited LEED assessor or person, and they attach that certification to their application. So I think to part of Mr. Bergdorf's point, and just for the public and for the committee to have this understanding, the local assessors aren't being asked to do sort of a LEED-related analysis. They're looking for whether they've gotten that outside certification, and if they have, it's kind of a check yes, check no. There are questions, and in terms of the process, that we're happy to kind of provide. Maybe we can type up a summary or provide something to the committee for just to make sure everybody understands the process.
Go ahead, Dan.
So in a case of new construction, is the value of the exemption equal to the value of the improvements specifically related to the LEED things, or the whole total?
The
of
whole
building?
improvement, but
Building.
capped at $1 million of assessed value.
It's interesting, Mr. Chairman, Lucas was very kind to brief the minority members on this earlier today, and then we had a discussion afterwards. And obviously, this sends the right message. It sends a powerful message. That having been said, there's something that's a little bit troubling in it, in that when you look at the paperwork that's involved, the certification process, which is not, inconsiderable, and would be quite expensive, and particularly if you're talking about residential or even commercial. The reality is likely that people or the entities that will avail themselves of this opportunity will be very well off. And then the cost of their exempted taxes, albeit cents on a dollar to each person, but that cost then will be shoved off to taxpayers who are not well off. And I think we just need to sort of ponder that, because it's not a reduction in the overall tax that comes into the county, it's a reallocation of that to other taxpayers. So I'm a little troubled that it may be not necessarily a giveaway, because it is affecting a good public policy, but the benefits, I think, I'm sure will flow disproportionately to those who have the means to participate in this type of fairly complicated program.
I'm not sure, it's an interesting point, I'm not sure I entirely agree. In Tompkins and Niagara, a lot of the projects, it's been sort of part of the capital stack for low-income housing projects, so making those projects affordable in conjunction with the low-income housing tax credit has been a large number of the projects that have happened elsewhere. Doesn't mean that's what will happen here, but that's what Tompkins has seen, so.
But
it's
those
something
exemptions go to the benefit of the developer of those low-income housing, not
They
the,
do,
not
but
the
they
end
allow
use-
the
not the end
project
user.
to happen, and so, you need exemptions in order to make these projects viable in some cases. So if you're gonna build these sort of projects, you're stacking different tax credits to make them possible. So you're right that the beneficiary is the project developer, but it can be a question of does the project go forward or not. So I think it's something to monitor, but it's not quite so simple.
Yes, they do get benefits, but we now have more housing. So that's part of it. I would say, Jeff, your characterization is somewhat true, but also most of the projects, there will be the higher means people who do it, just like adopting rooftop solar and every other innovation in the beginning. Eventually, it filters through, but it's still a relatively small number, and most of the tax base is still going to be the higher income people who are paying more in property taxes. So I don't think a lot of that impact is going to filter down in a negative way. I think it's going to be more spread about across the base, but most of that income that's being generated, it's coming from other properties.
If I could, to your point though, this is one initiative, right? This is sort of a plug and play in that it's a state program that already exists, opt-in, and it's a positive impact, but albeit somewhat limited. I think there are other things that, that we can do to make it more accessible in the community for people to transition, whether it's to electric vehicles or, make improvements in their household to go green. And so I think just to take a step back from the specific here and to your point, I think there are other things. This is part of a bigger conversation.
So let's say a developer achieves the total cap amount of the $1 million. How much of that assessed value would they be saving or getting?
So it's a little tough because it's slightly different in each municipality, but give or take 4,000 a year would be the max.
For 10 years?
It's tiered. If you look in the law, the backup, it's tiered depending on whether you reach, the basic, the silver, the gold, or the platinum. So it's similar to a pilot in that it scales back over time. So the first couple of years are 0, then it shifts up, making its way back to full assessment after, I think, 10 years.
Is there a question over here?
You know, I look in my neighborhood and I can't see anybody taking any of the houses that are now 30 or 40 years old and getting them to the point where they may be green silver. But what I do see a lot of in our town is commercial buildings in the corridors that maybe are worth $1 million or $2 million, and somebody renovates them and upgrades them and puts $2 million into them and gets silver status, and then I guess the assessed valuation, they would save $1 million on the total assessed valuation. So if they started with 2 and they spent an extra 2, assuming that the assessor didn't drop their original assessment, they'd be at 4 minus 1 is 3. So there'd still be a growth in the
Yeah, I
real
think
property
that's
tax
right.
base.
And
I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how is this gonna work in the real world across, you know, it's one thing when you build the Blue Cross Blue Shield building in Corporate Woods and it's $50 million, okay? So you get $1 million credit. But when you're renovating a small office building on Route 7, you know, how does that work? And I'm not even sure on the residential stock in Colony whether you get to the point where I'd be surprised to know if there were many green certified residential structures in our town.
Yeah, I think
Well,
to
The data that it seems to be that some of it happens, but it's not gonna be like an avalanche of.
No.
I mean, I think, Paul, you're making an interesting point that at least in the commercial space and possibly in the residential as well, we're still gonna be looking at an expanding tax base. Just with.
I hope so.
growth
I want to make sure that we're not diminishing a tax base with somebody getting a credit that, you know, somebody spends $1 million on a $500,000 building, puts in a geothermal pump that costs him $100,000, and then the place is, you know, still
couple,
he gets $1 million cap for, you know.
so if
Well,
I
so-
could, this does not touch the existing assessed value. Like, you have your baseline, that does not change. This is entirely focused on the improvement, which is more straightforward to understand when it's a new construction, but it is the same for a retrofit where it is, the assessor has the ability, they do this all the time, when you have a significant renovation or improvement to determine that increase in assessed value. So that's the piece that is eligible for this. I will, and just for what it's worth, I don't think statewide you've seen this apply to retrofits much at all. It doesn't mean it can't or shouldn't, but I think by and large, just looking at the data, it's almost entirely new construction, which kind of makes sense if you think about the complexities of it that you were alluding to, so.
Well, I'm very supportive. I'll probably end up as a sponsor of this. I just want to kind of understand how it's going to work in real life, and especially in our community where we have, you know, 20,000 residential homes and 7,000 commercial structures.
Yep,
This goes with the owner, or does it go with the property?
with the property.
So in other words, if he takes 1/10 of the money and he decides to sell the property, what happens?
If he takes 1/10 of what money?
The 10 million?
Meaning, you mean like you sell it after 1 year into the
Yeah,
program?
exactly.
Yeah, but the new owner would benefit the 9/10.
Right.
The new owner would.
Yep. Yeah, because it's tied to the property, it's not, yeah, it's not tied to the owner.
So, One more question. Who would be responsible for monitoring this? Will it be the state or the county?
So if somebody were to take advantage of this program, they would apply to their town, city, or village assessor, who would review the application. Again, not to downplay it, but basically look if they got a certified outside certification. If they did, then they would be the ones to track it. You know, volume-wise, based on some of the numbers we talked about, it's gonna be a very simple exemption to track relative to some of the other ones. You know, take a star benefit or enhanced star, that is, they're used to tracking hundreds, if not thousands of those. So it's gonna be pretty straightforward to track, but that would primarily occur at the local level and then get sorted out when we, you know, with the normal county to municipal tax process.
And to be clear, this is only applying to the county's portion of the tax.
Right, which averages 15%, Dave? Give or take, 15% county portion of tax,
Depending on the municipality, yeah.
give or take.
Okay. Oh, one more, and then we're actually gonna table it after that.
Yeah, one last point. I just, it was a question that I asked Luke to try to figure out. When I was part of an organization that had a commercial building, and we built to very, very high energy standards, but we never achieved LEED. We then added a whole bunch of things to the building, and we finally achieved LEED Silver. But in order to get that LEED Silver designation, you couldn't just have an architect say, voila, you are LEED Silver. You had to appeal to the LEED Building Council, submit all sorts of data, performance data, and they designate you as LEED certified. So my question was, who under this program is has the magic wand that says, Bill, what you built is LEED certified silver? Is it your architect? Is it a consulting architect? Is it the LEED Building Council? Is it? Needs to be someone who's got real credentials.
Yeah, so the way LEED works, because obviously they can't review everything from one location, they have an accreditation process, where if I want to be a LEED certifier, I have to go to LEED, I have to take coursework, I have to get that accreditation, I have to do continuing education, I have to become LEED, you know, a certified, you know, person who can evaluate these things. It has to be an accredited LEED individual who does this, and this is it's fairly rigorous, but it's also very straightforward. It's a point system. You know, you go area by area, energy efficiency, water efficiency, use of renewable energy, etc. And you kind of either have it or you don't, for the most part, and it's more technical than that, but it's a point system where you have to cross a threshold. You get a certain number of points, that's how you get silver. You get a higher number of points, gold, highest number of points, platinum. So that is the way their system works. I told Mr. Bergdorf I'd dig a little bit deeper into sort of how people get accredited and certified and what that system looks like, but it's you know, very highly reputable and well-respected program, I think, nationally and even internationally.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. There are certification bodies, and it is a global thing right now. Okay, if there are no more questions, we will leave that one on the table and go to item 4. Authorizing the Department of Economic Development, Conservation and Planning to take initial review actions to determine seeker lead agency status regarding the Shaker Place garage at Hill House Road in the town of Colony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, everyone. As part of the, excuse me, as part of the 2023 to 2027 capital plan, there's a request to build a a garage at One Hill House Road that will encompass all of Shaker's equipment and some DPW equipment. So that is not kept out in the elements. Currently, there's not enough space to house the equipment for the growing need that after we remodel the facility, the trucks and stuff, we want to take care of them, keep them, and have them up to status. This is just the request to designate us lead agency. As going forward, it was determined, well, in the past, it was determined after review that we're gonna need a secret type 1, and for that process, we need to be lead agency.
Any questions? Yeah.
Hill House Road, that's the building there that used to be the old facility for the kids and stuff.
Yeah, it used
Are you
to-
demolishing the building?
Yes,
Eventually, that's
yeah.
gonna be taken all down?
Yeah, I believe somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong because the dates kind of blur together, but I'm guessing about 15 years ago, the funding for Hill House got transferred out and they did something else and the building fell to the wayside of that for use. It's dilapidated, needs
Oh, yeah, I used to
demolition.
go
If
over
you
there
can
quite
barely see it
frequently
at
with
this
my
point.
job. Yeah. It's great though at Halloween, the kids love it. Because you can't even see it back there. You know?
No, there's just the cart path that does this.
Pretty
it's right
scary,
there.
spooky,
It
scary,
is.
yeah.
It is, it's actually good transformation of that, you know. give
Do I
everyone
sense
that.
some childhood memories?
Professionally, I was there a number of times with children.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion here? Yes? A second? Do the second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
I think we're all done. Move to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All in favor, I suspect.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay.